Welcome back to Season 4 of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Join me, Brad, each week as my guests and I share incredible and powerful sobriety stories. We're here to show sobriety is possible, one story at a time. Let's go. In this episode of the podcast, I sit down with Blake, who shares his journey from growing up in a small town with a drinking culture to becoming nearly 1 year sober. Blake discusses his initial experimentation with alcohol, the challenges of moderation, and the fork-in-the-road moments that led him to quit drinking. He also dives into the impact of alcohol on his mental health, relationships, and other areas of his life. Blake highlights the importance of a support system, replacing alcohol with healthier habits, and his aspiration to break the cycle. And this is Blake's story on the Sober Motivation Podcast. Welcome back to another episode of the Sober Motivation Podcast. Today we've got Blake with us. Blake, how are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Brad.
Of course, man. It was great before we jumped on kind of the quote unquote air here. You're just sharing with me how you found the podcast and relate to so many of the different stories, and then threw your name in the hat one day too. And here we are.
Absolutely. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. So what was it like for you growing up?
I grew up in a small town in Illinois, pretty population, 2,000. And I was involved in sports, did fairly well in school, had your typical normal upbringing. I got two brothers, and high school was great. I had loving parents. I was a two-sport athlete. I wrestled and played football. I was involved with school activities, and it was great. I mean, I really enjoyed my high school experience, and I don't have any regrets really. But the whole point I'm here is because, that's where drinking started for me. And I think a lot of people, especially that I've resonated on the podcast, have kind of expressed when you're in a small town, what do you do for fun? And some people, fun, it's maybe they're going to join a club or be part of some kind of extracurricular activity, or you're going to drink and you're going to find ways to get alcohol. And for me, it probably started when I was kind of thinking about this before I was going to do the podcast, because I'm not exactly entirely sure. I don't have that that first moment, and because it all was blended in. But I would say I probably started drinking, recreationally with my friends, probably 15 to 16. So freshman year in high school. And it was just what we did. And at no point did we ever, we knew it was wrong. We're okay, we're not 21. But it was never a problem to get alcohol. It was never this impossible feat. It just happened. And honestly, if you would ask me how I did it, I really don't remember. We just had people that had hookups, and we would get our 12-pack of Keystone or Busch Light or Natty Light or Skull Vodka or just thinking about that now just makes me gag.
Yeah. All the cheap stuff, right?
Oh.
I mean, I had a big stretch of the Keystone Light just because of the price was right for my budget at the time. But and I mean, it's a very common story. I mean, that's kind of how it starts, that innocent sort of thing of, just hanging out. Small town, you mentioned too, a couple thousand people. Yeah, it's not like there's arcades on every corner and nope. Stuff to kind of keep you busy too. Interesting though, a lot of people I hear from maybe my generation too, it was a thing for the parents to, as long as they're at our house, right? As long as that we're kind of keeping a watchful eye. I think people are kind of waking up to that a little bit, because I get the whole idea behind it. And I'm not definitely here to say what anybody's got to do with that aspect of things. But I think it could, for me anyway, when I saw that, it sent sort of the wrong signal. But, very relatable for where things started for you. And at first, no problem with it, right?
No problem at all.
Yeah.
It was totally normal. Never once became a problem with school, athletics, my home life. Honestly, I have loving parents. My parents are wonderful people, and they've been super supportive of me my entire life. And I was kind of I make sure I get the term right, but a latchkey kid, kind of they just let me go out and about, and I'd be gone all day long. And we're about the same age, Brad, and I'm a few years younger than you, but we grew up, I didn't have cell phone. I think I had a Razor, still miss that thing. Yeah. And maybe my junior or senior year, but I just told my parents, this is what we're doing, and I'll be back later, and they just kind of were cool with it.
Yeah.
But yeah, to your point too, like it never was a problem. It never affected my education, sports. That stuff always came first. And I guess I was just young enough and naive enough where I didn't at that time know the consequences of drinking. And it's just like this is what you do. If you want to fit in, if you want to be social, if you want to be part of the club, you have to drink. And I love drinking. I mean, I,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people on here are like, oh, the first taste was like, oh, but I just made me feel good. Like I just remember all the good times that we had, and I got into a lot of mischief. Luckily, I've never got in trouble by the law, and that's all past the statute of limitations at this point. So we can it is what it is. But I was a good kid, stayed out of trouble, and and I just we can get more into it, but
Yeah.
it just never was a problem for me.
Yeah, and I feel like when you're able to keep it at that level too, it's kind of like fly under the radar too. Like it's not really that big of a problem, but if it's not this big thing, of course, I mean nobody's gonna come and mention stuff to you, and like you're keeping stuff together. You're going out for the day. You're not getting in a whole bunch of trouble and stuff. So it's like, I mean, a very common thing to kind of get into and not take it too far, and plugged into sports and doing school and everything. Like, yeah, I mean, makes sense, and it did offer that sort of way of connection. I think that's one of
Mhm.
the big things that a lot of us, maybe get attracted to. I sure did anyway, being able to meet people because I just picture it. I would go to parties and I don't know anybody there. Like I'm like, we don't really have anything in common. And
No.
by the end of the night, you could kind of be best pals. I mean, not
Mhm.
like, lifelong friends, but could we have done that at 17, 18, 19, sober, like hung out with people for 4 or 5 hours? Like, I don't know. Would have been tough, would have been awkward. So it was, check that box for sure. Where do things go for you after high school?
So went back to college, to like a community college for a couple years, and yeah, I just didn't really have a good direction of what I wanted to do with my life at that point. One of my interests and hobbies is cooking, so it was something that I thought I could be good at and pursue, but it just never really ended up happening. So I just went back to school and got like my general associate's degree, and got my prerequisites out of the way. And then there was like a couple years span where I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, and I was just kind of working, staying at home, and working some side jobs. And I decided to go back to college, and that's where I went to get my 4-year degree, and I got that in criminal justice. And that's why I decided that in high school, I mean, I dabbled with the idea of getting into law enforcement, and it always kind of interests me. It was something that I thought I could be good at because I've always been, charismatic and good with people, and just like be able to talk to people. And that's one thing that people always kind of said that that'd be something you could be good at. So I went back to school, got my degree, and I applied to the agency that I'm currently employed to right now. And they hired me right away, and that's where I've been since. So I'll be starting my 9th year next month in law enforcement. So
Wow. So how do you shift from the love of food to law enforcement? Was that just like you just saw a program and you're like, I'll check it out, or what?
yeah, pretty much. Like I don't have any prior, like none of my family is military. I know like law enforcement employs a lot of military, ex-military, and or it's kind of like hey, my dad was a cop, his dad was a cop, and kind of a family thing. So nobody in my family, immediate family, was law enforcement, and it was something that I just kind of like I could probably be good at that, and I just kind of went down that path, and it's been really good to me, and I've had a great career, and I'm getting like almost halfway done with it, so it's like it's really cool. But it's the whole point. Like I really wanted to jump on the podcast is because like there's so many people struggling in law enforcement and first responders in general. Nurses, ER staff, firefighters.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not trying to dismiss anybody's profession. Whatever you may do, any career choice has stress, especially when you're throwing family and other just aspects of life into it. But as first responders, I mean, we experience a large amount of trauma and traumatic events yearly. And, I think the average person might see 4 to 5 traumatic events in their life. That could be a loss of a loved one to a bad car accident, to somebody suddenly dying, when law enforcement can see upwards to 200 traumatic events a year.
Wow.
So yeah, I just like leading into that, like,
Yeah.
I guess my point is like, what do cops do to relieve that stress? They drink. And obviously cops can't use recreational drugs because it's illegal and they're the ones enforcing the law. So what is there to do?
Yeah.
Alcohol. So
Yeah. And that's something that is a big trend that I've seen too. I mean, even when you reached out and, sharing with me your story and everything, and thinking, hey, this is a little bit different than what we usually gather here, because I would say there's a handful of professions too that, I've never been there and I'm only an outsider, in taking a shot in the dark here, but it's just something you just don't talk about, maybe. Or maybe things are changing and maybe things are moving in the right direction. I think especially with nurses, you have a license held to. You have a license that you lose. If I'm working as a chef and I lose my job from one restaurant because they say, oh, you're in sobriety, and I could go to another restaurant. I see people with sort of the license and in stuff too. You could lose that or get that suspended. It's very hard to come out and say something, because with the fear of like, okay, if I say something and everything works out, I'll probably be okay. But like, what if I struggle with the process and now sort of the dots are connected? I'm glad you're bringing this forward too. And just what you see, I have a buddy of mine who just got into RCMP up here in Canada. And I was like, I don't know how you could do it. And one of the reasons being is because when I wake up every day, I kind of have a general idea of how things are going to go. I mean, obviously, wrenches can be thrown in, but when you wake up in those professions that you mentioned there, my vision is you could be having a cup of coffee 1 second and you could be heading somewhere else, and it could completely turn your day upside down. I feel like personally that would always kind of be bouncing around somewhere.
Absolutely. Like, it's, and it's just like, I have so much to say about this, and it's like, I'm very passionate about it because of exactly what you just said. Like, that feeling of like 1 second you're having a cup of coffee and next thing you're going to a shooting, or something, somebody's dying or something, a major accident, and you're expected just to handle it and then move on to the next call. And there's really no room for, I mean, you work a 12-hour shift, and that's most police departments or most nurses or fire department, and you're just expected to move on. And there's no time to decompress and get rid of that built up adrenaline and all those other hormones that are flooding your body now. So the time you get done with your shift, you might experience, multiple arrests, dealing with disorderly, dealing with combative subjects that are wanting to hurt you. All you can think about is like, I just need to get done with the shift and I need to get home to my family and I need to be safe. And then what do you do to relax? And I think a lot of people resort to alcohol. And like you said earlier, like, I think it's becoming more like open, especially with like the mental health aspect of where everything's going to society. But like, you ask the average cop and they're like, I don't got a drinking problem.
Yeah.
But the amount of people that do have a drinking problem in this profession is, I mean, I don't even want to know the percentage. It's, it's just runs rampant.
Yeah. Is that when you started this, right? You come 9 years, I think you mentioned there, just for like a timeline. Is that when you noticed things start to pick up for you as far as the drinking, or was it before that, college or?
No. So I would say I have a specific date in mind where it all kind of shifted for me. But I would say probably the first 5 years of my career, it never really was a problem. It was like, you drink, you binge drink, you drink all weekend, whatever it may be. And then, you'd wake up and you'd have the physical side effects and, the nauseous feeling, maybe throwing up, just lethargic, the typical physical hangover. But it never weighed on me. And, it's just what I did. And, it's every weekend, like hanging out with the guys or going out with, my girlfriend at the time, who's now my wife. And we would get drinks and get dinner and, anything we did, it was all based around drinking and every social aspect. And that's the problem, is everything for adults, revolves around drinking. You go to a sports game, there's drinking. You go to a family event, there's drinking. You go out to dinner, there's always drinks available. So it never really was a problem up until then. But then probably about 4 years ago, I had my bachelor party, and we rented this riverboat, and we were up like on the Mississippi River, like in between Minnesota and Wisconsin, and it was a great time. It was like me, my closest friends, and my dad and my father-in-law showed up with my two brothers. So it was a big group of guys, and I wouldn't say we like got crazy, but I mean we drank every day, and we grilled out, and we just had a great time. When I got back, I had this feeling of like dissociatedness. Like I almost thought I was like hallucinating, because like I could still feel like my body swaying, and I know that's from like being on a river boat for 3 days straight, so your equilibrium is going to be all distorted. Yeah. But that feeling I had of like being dissociated and not being able to like talk or think really scared me. And I was like, whoa. That was like the first time where I was like, okay, something's going on here.
Yeah.
And since that point, every time I would, binge drink or drink during the weekends or 2 or 3 days in a row, that feeling would come back. And I just dealt with that for a few years. And it got really bad. I mean, it got to the point where it was really affecting my job performance. And, I started seeing a counselor, and, we started talking. And he gave me some really good advice on how to, exactly what I was experiencing. So for like the next couple years, I just kind of like try to mitigate it. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just not going to drink so much. I was never like a blackout drinker, but I mean, I could drink a lot. I mean, upwards of 12 plus drinks, in a night or a day. Yeah. And, so yeah, I started really starting to minimize my intake, and it got to the point where maybe I would only have a couple, and that next day I would still wake up and feel like, I know people on this podcast have said like anxiety or just general anxiety, depression, and I would feel those feelings, and it just became too much, and I knew something had to give. And so that's when I started really thinking about, sobriety.
Yeah. So you kind of, the party there was heavy drinking, and then it kind of set off this, other thing of feeling different about it. And then you kind of go into the moderation. I mean, I think that's a common trend for a lot of people too. It's kind of like, now we're going to make, compromises with ourselves or whatever it is, right? I'm only going to do this. I'm only going to have that much. And I don't know what your experience is, and maybe you'll share with us, but I find for a lot of people, like, man, that's such a tough uphill battle to fight, of trying to quote unquote moderate a highly addictive substance that our brain is craving. Like, what was your experience in that sort of middle ground?
Yeah, so I was able to do it to a certain degree, but like, it's like alcohol is like you said, such an addictive substance, and it's like trying to tell somebody that's addicted to food that they can't eat. Mm-hmm. So there really was this, like, I mean, if you're addicted to food, you have to eat. So you have to change your lifestyle, or else, I mean, you're always going to want those highly processed foods and sugars and bad thing. But we're like drugs, like you have to actually go out and get them. You can't just go to the supermarket and buy legal narcotics. Where alcohol, it's so accessible. You could go to the grocery store and walk out with like 2 handles of bourbon or vodka, and nobody would ever look at you. They'd be like, oh, he must be having a party. And that'd be it. Nobody would ever think twice. I mean, you could almost damn near fill up your whole grocery cart with beer, 12 packs or whatever, and nobody would ever say anything. They'd be like, oh, you must be going to a party. Yeah. So with the moderation, it just wasn't working. Like, I was like, but that's when I really started to get scared. I was like, okay, this is a problem, because now I'm even limiting my intake to maybe a very small amount, and maybe more recreationally, rather than just like coming home and like having a beer to like relax. And even that small amount was still like a weekly thing, was still causing the same effects as if I was in my, really high binge drinking days.
Yeah.
And I know when I was talking to like my therapist, I would mention, I was like, and I've heard this so many times on the podcast, like, oh, could never be sober. It's impossible. Oh my God. Like if I could just enjoy a drink, like if I could just go to a winery and have a glass of wine with my wife, or a nice steak dinner, or if I could enjoy a bourbon, like, or just like a nice IPA from a brewery. Like there's nothing wrong with that. Like,
Yeah.
come on, man, just one drink. Like, what's the big deal?
Yeah.
And it still wasn't an option because I don't know where I heard it, man, but like somebody said, like, I have enough evidence to know that I shouldn't drink. And I've proven that to myself time in and time in it again. And it's like, I have enough evidence. Like, I shouldn't drink. And that doesn't make me weak. It doesn't make me, like, quote unquote, not, normal, not normal.
Yeah.
But I just know what it does to me. And it just takes too much. And, I'm just like, I'm into wellness. I'm into fitness. I'm into like, and it was just like, what am I doing to myself? I'm literally poisoning myself every day, almost every day. For what? For what? So like I can fit in. You know what? The biggest thing, the two things going into this past year, and I'll be sober here in 10 days. August 24th would be my sobriety date of 1 year.
Yeah.
And it's just like to say that out loud confidently is like, whoa, like this is
like
cool.
What happened?
This is like, man, this is actually happening. But the two things that like leading up to that were my two biggest fears was, how am I going to have to explain to people that I don't drink? And, am I actually going to be able to like have fun and enjoy my adult life without drinking? And I mean, this past year, I have done everything that I thought I wouldn't be able to have fun sober. And I've had a great time. I've been to weddings. I've been to social events. I've been on my vacation with my wife, and we had our first sober vacation, and we had an amazing time. And it's like, I just want people to know out right that are listening. Like, I never, ever thought that I was going to be at this point, like ever.
Yeah.
And you would ask me a year and a half ago, I'd been like, absolutely not. I would never stop drinking. Are you kidding me? Like, what's the point of living if you're not going to enjoy a couple beers?
Yeah.
What's the deal?
Yeah. Which it's so interesting you bring that up because it's so true. Like we have this, a lot of people do. And I mean, I was there too, right? Like, what is life going to look like? How am I going to connect with people? What am I going to do? But all the scenarios, we could probably chat about those for just an hour, and how like none of that stuff that we're most worried about really ever comes true. But isn't it interesting to look back and like, I don't know, maybe we call it brainwashing, or maybe we just call it playing small, or we come up with another thing for it. But how did we get from the point in high school just drinking to whatever, just connect with the boys or whatever it was, have some fun and maybe chase girls around, who knows what we were doing. But we go from that point to a point, a decade or so late, or even less than a decade for you, and it was for me too, to where we end up at this spot where living my life without this is impossible. Like, you know what I mean? Doesn't it, on this side of things, doesn't it sound a little bit madness?
Yeah.
Of like, how can I not? And now we have a lot more information coming forward about cancer causing and about the effects of the brain and how it shrinks the brain. And it has all of this stuff, right? Blood pressure, heart. I mean, it does damage to so many areas of our body. And it's like, we get so convinced we need it. And I'm with you 110% on this. And I think a lot of other people are too, because that's why we stick around. How the heck did we go from just innocently drinking some Keystone Light to having this life where we're experiencing consequences, and you have all this other stuff going on? And I did too. And I'm like, I can't see a life without it. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah. I mean, it's like, looking back, I drank. I mean, like I think you said recently on your podcast, like, I mean, maybe like 80% of the time, like you would drink and there'd be no problems. And then like, the other percentage of the time would just be like so devastating that you're literally opening yourself to endless possibilities of bad things that can happen to you.
Yeah.
And It only takes that one time for you to drink, over consume, stay out too late, get behind the wheel of a car, or who knows what could happen. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
people make horrible decisions when they drink, and it's like, my uncle always told me like nothing good happens after midnight, and I know that from firsthand experience from doing my job. Like, I literally, I deal with drunk people all the time,
Mm-hmm.
and a combination of that and drugs, and it it brings out the absolute worst in you. And I mean, it was doing that to me. It was affecting my marriage. It was affecting my social setting, like my friends. I mean, and we could really go in more into the mental health aspect of this because I'm a
Yeah.
huge proponent of that. And I mean,
Yeah.
I guess my message is I'm not just trying to be like, hey, I had a drinking problem and like it was affecting my job and I just wanted to quit drinking, so I quit drinking. But I just wanted to highlight some more of the mental health aspect. Like,
Yeah.
it was destroying me, man. Like, I'm a very introspective person. I'm very thoughtful, and I'm very cognizant of my body and well-being and fitness and spirituality and just like
Mm-hmm.
embracing this whole life that we are gifted, this wonderful life. And then you're just gonna drink it all away because that's what you're supposed to do. You're just supposed to like poison yourself slowly and then maybe have a few good times, but then have these other horrible times in between where you get in awful fights with your significant other, you get in trouble at work, you lose your job, you lose your family. I mean, it's just like it's endless. I mean, you're spending an enormous amount of money for what? I mean,
Yeah.
really for what? Because you like the taste? Okay. you know,
Yeah.
maybe there are some people out there that enjoy the taste of alcohol, but I think most people drink because they're running from something. And
Yeah. Yeah,
that,
or something's going on. Yeah, and that's another angle too. Kind of like the external things, right? The job and the relationships and all that stuff, but then that internal battle too. I mean, I always say like I was just so far out of alignment. I mean, the 80-20 rule, for the 20%, when I got into the 20%, Blake, you would show up, man. Where I'm getting in trouble all the time and that really wasn't who I was. I
I know,
really wasn't who I was. It
I know.
never was. I never and I'm finding myself in trouble over and over again, and if I look back, it's like, okay, this is the common denominator with all this stuff. But then the other impacts on the mental health too. Like, I mean, a lot of people talk about anxiety. I think what we don't talk a lot about is how we feel about ourselves, because we're like I was mentioning there earlier, I was so far out of alignment with who I actually was at my core, the values and everything that was instilled in me growing up. And here I'm
Mhm.
living this kind of outlawish lifestyle personally. And I'm just like, every corner I look around, I'm like, man, this is so far from who I actually was. But people loved it. And I was like, well, I mean, I wanted to fit in so bad. I
Mhm.
mean, the time I got in trouble for the biggest thing I got in trouble for, crazy. I was reflecting back on this on my 38th birthday. It was selling narcotics to an undercover police officer and a buddy of mine. I wanted this guy to like me, man.
Mhm.
And as hard as that is to admit, the chaos that caused in my life, I mean, it turned out to be the best thing for my life. I didn't see it at the time, but it all came back to like a young boy, Brad, the young boy, wanting to be accepted and wanting to fit in without having any idea of that at the time. So
Mhm.
it really did for me, man. I ended up in some spots that made things difficult, but it has a huge, you're right, though. I mean, it has a huge toll on our mental health.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's and I appreciate bringing that up because I mean, obviously, there's been a lot of your guests that have got into some serious trouble because of this, and it's something that it's just so available. And like growing up too, like I never was talked to, about drinking.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this is what could happen to you. Like, hey, like it's really amazing how we just kind of let young people just wing it. All
Mm-hmm.
right, well, go, like we're not going to really tell you like the effects of alcohol or how much
Yeah.
you really can drink or should drink.
Yeah.
It's like drink responsibly. Like, what does
Yeah.
that mean?
I
Like,
know. They got away with that marketing tactic
oh,
forever. Did you ever do the DARE program?
No, never did the DARE program. When I started, they kind of like backed out of that. I know that was probably like more like late 90s, early 2000s.
Yeah. Did they have a substitute of any sort?
No, nothing that
Okay.
I know
Yeah.
of.
Yeah. I know even there too, it was really like, I mean, I think I always give people the benefit of the doubt, right? They did the best they could with what they had, you know? Like that's what I often try to do. But it was really focused on like, from what I took from it is just say no. That was like the
Mhm.
whole thing. I think that's the big campaign kind of all around the US at the time was like, just say no to drugs, you know? But
Yeah.
I don't think at that time they were they were really putting alcohol into the same category. Even sometimes now people will be apprehensive a bit, right? Of alcohol as a drug. And it's like, yeah, I mean, of course it's a drug. It's just
Yeah.
one you buy at the store. But their whole thing was just say no, which I mean, I get there was benefit to that. But my problem is like, okay, I would already not then because I was grade 5, I did that. But when I started to slip, like I didn't know what to do. I was like, okay,
Mhm.
I know I'm leaning on these substances, you know, alcohol being one of them more and more. But I was just like, I don't know really where to get help at. When I was on probation the first time when I was 16. So it's like, okay, I've got this. It's like, okay, do I go tell the counselor? Is it going to tell the probation officer? Be back in jail for the weekend? Like, what do I do? Right. I was kind of in that spot. So I think now, like in schools too, and they got a lot more people kind of going in there and obviously sharing, but it's like, hey, if you find yourself in trouble, like maybe here's a couple steps to reach out
Mhm.
and get some support. But then too, there was all the stigma and the shame and everything else too, right? And I think we're definitely moving in the right direction with that. I mean, hopefully with the show. And I think it just goes to show like just I don't know. I mean, regular folks that had decent lives and struggled with this and are finding a way out to share about it. I think it's so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I think at the end of the day, like choosing to not drink has just been it's been so good for me because I always envisioned what it would be like, and I guess I would like fantasize about it, and but to actually do it and to have almost a year, down, and,
Yeah.
that this is the same I had, like I've made it through 52 weekends of not drinking, and I've just been able to really grow as a person and see that potential, and don't get me wrong, there's been times where it's like, people will be like, "Oh, come on, man! Like, just you've made it long enough. Just have a drink." And it's just like, man, what are you trying to do to me? Like, I don't
Yeah.
want that. It's like I lived a whole lifetime of drinking, and now I want to live a whole nother life without drinking. And to me, that's really exciting because I know, like you said on your podcast a couple of times, some people just never figure it out,
Mm-hmm.
and they might go their entire life drinking, and it's like, what kind of potential did they lose? And I just think the message to get out there is that it's so important to stop, just to stop. Like, find that support system, go to a meeting, listen to this podcast, talk to somebody, talk to a therapist,
Yeah.
because it's possible. And I'm proof of it because I'm somebody that was always hyper aggressive. Like, I just live a very intense lifestyle, and like I'm always open to things. But I was like, that's the one thing I'm never going to give up because
Yeah.
that's what I'm supposed to do. Like, that's what I do as an adult. And I'm not gonna lie, like I like drinking. Like, most of the times were great, and it made me, I was the life of the party most of the time, and I really never got, in too much trouble. I mean, yeah, there was always those times that you overdrink and maybe said something you shouldn't have, regretted and everything. But I think that's pretty common. Fortunately for me, I never got in any trouble with it, and never had any, health problems due to it.
Yeah.
But other than the mental side of it, where it was really causing a big riff in my life.
Yeah.
So
What did your wife think about all of this when you brought it up to her? Did you talk with her like you were struggling with it or
oh yeah, she definitely knew, and she's been like super supportive through this entire process.
uh,
And when I first met her, she didn't drink. She came from a pretty tight knit family. Her parents, rarely drink. Her brothers don't drink. She was in band in high school, so while I was out going to barn parties and raising hell, she was like, donating her time at the church and going to band camp, and like we lived two totally different high school experiences. So when we first met, I was drinking. I was payday of my drinking, and I kind of brought her on board, and we had a lot of fun over the years. A lot of fun. It really we had a good time with it. But towards the end, it started to get rough. And, when you drink, it just opens up vessels that allow you to say things that wouldn't normally say, or get in arguments. And it was really starting to wear on our relationship. And when I told her, hey, I'm gonna try this, and she was really supportive. And she actually, unbeknownst to me, she just kind of jumped on board one day, and I was like, it was so funny, man, because like when I first started this, my biggest thing was like, okay, I'm not drinking, but if you're around me, I encourage you to drink. I'm not gonna like, don't drink because of me. And if people would come over to my house, I'd be like, hey, I'll make you a drink. And that's so crazy to say now, to actually like literally have the thing in my hand and give it to somebody. But I never was tempted by it. And I think that helped to kind of break away from that attachment to it. And so she just told me one day, I asked her, like, hey, do you want anything to drink? And she's like, no, I'm good. And I was like, when was the last time you had a drink? And she's like, oh, it's probably been a few months. I'm like, holy crap. Like, so yeah, I don't know for sure, but she's got to be almost like that 8 or 9 month mark as well.
Wow.
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
that's
it's awesome,
cool.
man.
Yeah. I mean, because I think everybody has their own story, obviously, but it can be challenging too, right? If you're, especially if you're married with somebody and, everybody's drinking can look a little bit different, right? Some people might lean more into it, some less, but I think it's great to be on the same journey. I mean, I just look at drinking as just really just a waste of time. I don't know. I always thought it was, I always thought it was what brought me together with other people, what connected me to other people. Like this was kind of the bridge from like maybe my awkwardness and stuff. This was a bridge. I drank some alcohol and then I'm like, can connect. But I look back and I'm thinking I was more disconnected in my life than I have been throughout my sobriety. I avoided the difficult times, and I mentioned it a lot on the podcast, and I think there's some importance to it. The longer we keep alcohol around, whether it's a problem in our life today or tomorrow, the more we lean on it, tough day, relationship, family member, something happens, the more and more we lean on it, I think we're really opening ourselves up to like maybe that one big event away. Cause I've heard the story so many times on the podcast, right? People keep it around. Probably they're doing all right, right? They're not having any big blow-ups in their life. Things are rocky, but whose life isn't a little rocky at times? But they have one thing happen, right? One thing kind of out of the blue, could be traumatic in a sense. And then it's like, okay, alcohol has been here for me, and it's like leaning more and more, and then you can really pick up speed. But that's cool. So walk me through sort of the end, the last week. I mean, how did you get this thing going and all of that story there?
Yeah. So one of the last times I really did drink, I was with a couple friends, and we're at this bar, and like I don't know, like they knew leading up to that, like I wasn't really drinking, like, or trying to drink, but we just ended up drinking like an absurd amount, like just like it was just like a shot fury, and it's like I don't even remember. I mean, I remember, but I don't really recall exactly. Like I remember just like getting home and like waking up the next day and just being like, okay, what's going on? What am I actually doing? And I just say, you know what, enough's enough, and I'm just gonna go. I just remember hearing, from like prior, like listening to stuff and reading stuff. It was like just like one day at a time. I was like, I'm just gonna go one day at a time. And I made it a week, and then it was like a couple weeks, and then I made it that month, and I was like, oh my God, I'm doing it. And I just knew I needed to just let it go. And it was just like, hey, like if I could like shake alcohol hand, I would. I'd be like, hey man, it's been great, but I gotta let you go, man. It's good. It's good. Like we're cool, but see you later. And that's kind of how I was with it. I just wanted a new life, and I wanted to see what it would be like without alcohol. And I heard like Jim Carrey or some quote when floats around once in a while. And he's like, go a whole year without like bad people in your life and just see what you're like on the other side. Yeah. I'm paraphrasing that, but that's kind of what my mindset was. I was like, just go as long as you can. And if you start seeing the benefits, then keep going with it. Mm-hmm. And I just kept going, and the benefits just kept becoming more and more, apparent to me. and it's just lining up with who I am as a person and what I wanted to be and to reach that full potential that I've always wanted. And I just felt like alcohol was just, it was always there to hold me down, always there. And obviously I was never going to get to my fitness goals by drinking. And with my job, I just knew eventually it was going to reach a breaking point. And luckily I stopped when I did, because there was some times where, I mean, I almost got out of my profession strictly due to, my drinking. And that's one thing we just see across the board is there's a lot of really good cops out there, and, they end up drinking their career away. And I just didn't want that out of my life, and I wanted more. And here I am today. Like, I feel great. Yeah, like you said, man, it's like there's still days where it's rocky and, it's not perfect, but God, has it fixed like so many problems in my life. And that's what I just want people to know. Like, it's worth it. It is so worth it. And I drive to work or drive to the store, and I just remind myself how grateful I am that, God has allowed me to do this. And like, I just thank you for your podcast, because people's testimonies have been so impactful and everybody's story is so unique. And it's just like, you're not alone. I guess that's my thing, man. It's like, you're not alone. And if today might seem like I'll never get there, but one day, one day at a time, and you're going to get to that, whatever that milestone might be a year, 5 years, 10 years, who knows? But any day you don't drink is a good thing. And, I just want to encourage people to really think about that.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. So you just start out and see how far, let me just keep going. And then I think it does take, I think initially you can feel better, but maybe it takes a little bit longer, 30 days, 60 days, 90 days to start to experience, more benefits. Right. But like, once you see that I would say it's near impossible to deny it, that it's a direct result of not drinking. And you sleep better, wake up. And all that stuff is so massive for our life, right? That when we're drinking and stuff too, it's like, oh man, I'll never forget those nights, dude. Was waking up, just bed like soaked in sweat, and it's just like tossing, turning. I would wake up most mornings and wonder if I even went to sleep. I didn't even feel rested.
Yeah.
Just from the body going through detox of like, what's all this stuff that you put into your body, and then maybe order a Taco Bell and then went to sleep. And my body's like, oh my gosh, what are you doing to me? So you got, a year or 10 days from now. What are some of the biggest takeaways, man? Some of the things that you really saw. And I'm curious too about, I think there's kind of two ways that people like to consume, whether it be podcasts or content, sort of a broad general word, right? You have some stuff that's like, okay, stories, and you have other stuff that might be like, do this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, like do this and it'll work for you. What about the stories kind of maybe helped you or kept you interested too? Because I'm always wondering that.
Yeah, I think it's so important, like feeling connected and feeling that you're not alone, and that we're all very similar, especially in this domain. Language might separate somebody from another culture or whatever it may be, but like, I feel like under the umbrella of alcoholism, we all can connect, and we all are aware of it. So it's like listening to people's stories and just hearing what they've gone through. Like, it's like been time in and time out again. I was like, oh my God, that's me. Like, that was me. And I would think like, my podcast or my episode here is like, people are going to probably think the same thing. Like, and I think that at the end of the day, it's so important to hear that, because you do feel like alcoholism puts you on an island. It targets you. It puts you aside and said like, it's not the alcohol. It's like, you're the problem. You just need to change. You just need to like, just drink some more electrolytes. You need to like take this B12 before you go out and drink, so you don't wake up with a hangover. Or you need to, get up in the morning and go get some fast food to, soak up all the alcohol in your system. Or it's like all these remedies of like all the things that we do to mitigate the negative effects of drinking. But yet nobody ever talks about maybe what are all the positives of just not drinking. So I think at the end of the day, like, just hearing people's stories has been able to just help me understand that what I'm doing is the right thing. And
Yeah.
this isn't just like some, like, I'm on some high, right? If I was just on some high and I'm like, because like motivation is only going to get you so far.
Yeah.
Discipline and routine and structure is what's going to set you aside, and you're actually going to have growth. If I get motivated to go run for a week straight, that might happen. But then what happens when life gets a hold of you, and then you have to work overtime at work, or the kids need something, and now you don't have time to go run. All right, well, whatever, because all that's going to take the back burner now. And then guess what? Now a month's gone by and you haven't ran again.
Mm.
But discipline and routine and structure it's gonna get you where you need to be. And that's what I did. That's the mindset I had, is one day at a time. And when those cravings do come up, it's like, how am I going to act? How am I going to respond? And, I just constantly absorb your podcast, because it was just like, it was almost like that motivation and that routine would get me about a week or two. And then I would listen to another episode and it was like, oh yeah, that's right, man. Like, I'm doing dishes around the house, doing chores, and I got my earbuds in, I'm listening to your podcast. And it's like, it just reminds you of, like, no, you're doing the right thing. Just keep going. And now here I am, like a year later. It's like, man.
Like,
So,
man,
yeah.
where'd the time go? What was helpful for you? Because I think that is a big thing. I mean, a lot of people I work with, that's one of the things I try to get them to tackle first. Is like, what are you doing from 5 o'clock to 9 o'clock every night? Are we just chilling, watching Netflix, just seeing what the heck happens, opening ourselves up for a mystery, or can we implement some things in our routine? Can we go for a little 20-minute or 30-minute walk after work? Can we water the plants in the backyard? Like, can we kind of keep moving a little bit? What things helped you out sort of after your shift? I mean, you're working 12-hour shifts, but you have more days off. Like, what helped you with changing up your structure, your routine?
Yeah. So everything you just said, like, I would definitely do. I said I'm into like health and fitness and working out.
Yeah.
So, like, it was like, again, it was always going against the grain. It was always like, okay, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm drinking all these supplements, taking vitamins, and eating good food and exercising, and then I'm just destroying it with drinking. And we all know that alcohol is has a lot of calories in it. I mean, geez, you go and get an IPA at a brewery, you're looking at like well over 200, 300 calories, and people might drink like 3 or 4 of those.
Six.
Yeah,
I'd have 6.
a whole freaking day's worth of calories in that. So, like,
Sugar too? Is there a lot of sugar in it or no?
I would think there's a lot of sugar for sure. Yeah. So, like, just like going with that, it was going against the grain. So then I would start doing those things. Like, I would come home, I would take my walks, I would just try to keep myself preoccupied, because I knew that if I allowed myself to just sit by myself and not stay busy, then those temptations would come in. And those thoughts of, like, like, oh, come on, man, it's just a beer. You'll be all right. It's not like you're drinking, you're binge drinking and anything like that.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would do was I really just had to, like, separate, like, toxic people in my life.
Yeah.
And I know for many of your listeners, I know that's probably going to be one of the more common themes is, like, but they're my friends. Okay, well, they're your drinking buddies. They're not, maybe they're your friends. Your friends aren't going to allow you to stay out till 2 a.m. and close the bar down. That's not what a good friend does. That's just a drinking buddy.
Yeah.
So me and my wife just basically started saying no. And at first it was kind of awkward and hard, because, we were always game. Like, oh yeah, we don't got kids. Let's go party. And we just started saying no. And just, it's amazing, Brad. Like, all those people that I thought were my friends are like, they sure don't seem like they reach out to me anymore, which is cool.
Yeah.
Which is cool. So it's all good. I have nothing but love. Like, right. I'm not trying to sit here and say anything bad about anybody. I just think that's really important, that you need to start thinking of what's important to you. And these people that you think are your friends probably aren't really your friends. They probably just want to drink with you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that point too. Even for my birthday yesterday, 38, right? Having the cake, and my wife's like, who should I invite over? And I'll be honest, man, the list is not long. I don't keep a big circle.
No.
And I always remember this quote that that I saw somewhere, and it said, I had the most friends when I was the worst version of myself. And it always hits me, man, for those events and stuff, when I was drinking and partying. I mean, we had birthday parties, yeah, big bash, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it was like, wow, this is great.
Yeah.
Like I'm so cool.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm telling myself, and I was like, it had nothing to do with that. But that quote kind
Yeah.
of stood out to me of like, I had the most friends when I was the worst version of myself. And yeah, I think it is, but I think that, Blake, that's really hard for people. Some people I talk with them, they might have been pals or whatever it is with these people for decades, but I think if you peel back the layers of the onion, it's like, yeah, I mean, who's like letting you self-destruct in your life, and
Yeah.
who's holding you accountable to do better? Those are the conversations I crave today.
Oh,
When I
yeah.
kind of drop the ball with something, and my buddy's like, hey man, like, I mean, I think it was great you tried, but like, I think you got more in the tank. I think you could do better. I think you should go about something that way instead of maybe the way that you did. Or like when my wife mentions it, like, hey, maybe this is a different approach we can use with the kids. I mean, when I was drinking that stuff, I hated that stuff. I was like, guys, nobody tells me what to do. Now I'm like open to it.
Yeah.
And I can, those are the people I want in my life, basically, a long story short. But I think I mean, we always see that popular um, self-help quote, right? You're a result of the 5 people you hang out with. But I think it's spun a couple different ways, but I think we all get the idea is that people we hang out with most translates into our life probably a lot more than we realize. And I think that this strategy, and I think this was Jordan's sort of way going into it too, right? It's like this way of kind of withdrawing a little bit. I think
Mm-hmm.
there's something extremely healthy about doing that to find out where you want to go next, maybe.
Yeah. I lived one life and now I'm living this other life. And to me, it's still a little unreal that it's like, this is possible. And it's a thing because drinking is just like, that's what you do, and across the board. And again, I mean, there's reasons why people drink all the way until the day that they die, and because I just don't think we talk about it enough. And I think the more we can advocate to people that you can have fun without drinking,
Yeah.
you're going to have more fun actually when you don't drink.
Yeah. Yeah.
Actually, I mean, some people, if you said that to, you might as well like throw up like the crucifix. They're gonna be like, "Oh my god, stay away from me!" Like, you kidding me? Like,
Yeah, there's an
no.
alien. There's an
Yeah,
alien.
yeah. It's like, come on, like,
Yeah.
seriously, it's, and I think that's something that, like, I think once people understand, like, and that's why, like I said, these testimonial based podcasts is like just hearing from people being like, I never thought that that would be me, and here I am to say that it is true. It can happen. And other people might need some more support, and that's fine. Sometimes people just have to white knuckle it and just get through it. And like, I know you always mention, like, there's got to be a phase where you just don't drink. You have to get over that physical addiction, and then from there, it's all about mindset and growth mindset and choosing how you want to live the latter part of your life now. And yeah, so it's like, I feel like anything's possible now. I feel like when I was drinking, everything was hard. Everything was like one crack away from just blowing up. Like, my entire life, I felt like I was always walking on eggshells. I always thought that, it was like, I was almost like, pray at night, please, like, let me just not wake up and feel that horrible anxiety, that horrible depression, and knowing I have to go to work and I have to literally, like, life and death situations potentially. And like, drinking was just like ruining my brain function and my clarity and my mindset. And like, it was like almost like every day it was just, I just didn't know what to expect. And I didn't know if there would ever be like any relief from it. And so I just started to like moderate, and it just got to the point where even having a couple was just, it was still too much. And I just had to stop. I had to let it go. And man, I'm just so glad that I was able to do that. And
Yeah. It's interesting too there with the moderation. I mean, let me know your thoughts on this too. And then we'll head towards wrapping up. But isn't it easier? Well, I mean, this is my thought, and then you can share your sort of thought on it too. For me, it's easier to have none by a million light years than it is to try to have one. I think
yeah,
that's what people in my life today, if I meet new people or whatever, I don't really get it. Like just have one. But maybe years ago I did and just have one. And it's like, I literally have no interest, and
yeah.
I just don't have any interest in having one, but what are your thoughts? I mean, as far as like how difficult moderation can feel as opposed to like just not having any.
Yeah, like it would just be, what's the point?
Yeah.
Like, okay, I'm having one. Like, what am I doing? Like, I at least got to have 3 or 4 to catch a buzz. And
Yeah.
then from there, it's like, all right, now I got your buzz. Now it's, oh man, I don't want the party to end. Like, geez, I've already drank this much. I might as well just keep it going. And it just like always escalated into multiple. And it was always like catching that high, trying to, catch the dragon. And when you're a kid and when you're young, it's like the most romanticized thing. You're like, wow, this is
Yeah.
cool. Like you said, man, like how many times it was like you're at a party and like you just like totally open up and you are the life of the party and you feel so connected and you're like you feel like you're in like an 80s movie, like, like, oh man, like it's like you just feel so like it feels like right. It feels normal. You feel like this is a path. This is alcohol is going to get me to a point where like I'm meant to be, like cool people drink, famous people drink, celebrities and movie stars. And it was just like, it was all just a big mirage. And
Yeah.
as the years progressed, and I think once you get older in life, I think once you get more responsibility and just life gets a hold of you more, I think that mental aspect does really crank up quite a bit. Because again, in my early 20s, it was never really a thing. I never really had anxiety or depression too much. But then as I got older, it really started to show itself. And it was just becoming so apparent,
Yeah.
and it was a direct correlation. And as soon as I like unplugged it, yeah, I still have, bouts of some mild depression, anxiety, and where I live in Northwest Illinois, it's like we have some pretty harsh winters, so it's seasonal depression. And but it's like I think that's pretty normal. I think just being a human is a
Yeah.
crazy, crazy thing. And I
Yeah.
don't think people talk about that enough. Like here we are communicate. I mean, just being a human, man, it's a lot. It's a
Yeah.
huge undertaking. And now we're doing something to directly make it like 100 times worse, like by poisoning ourselves. Like life's hard enough. Like
Mm-hmm.
just be kind to yourself. And I think sober mindset and the sober life is just such a better way to live. I really do think that at the end of the day, it's just the way to go. I really believe that.
Yeah. Well, and too, I mean, you bring up the point there, like life. Yeah, I mean, life's going to happen sober or not. But I feel like you relatable from hearing your story too. Things are a lot more manageable on this side of things. Drinking is very unmanageable. One thing can come up and it can derail us completely for
Mhm.
weeks or months or wherever. Sober, what I find anyway is okay, stuff comes up. There's no running, there's no hiding, there's no escaping, there's no avoiding. We can use like healthier tools of meditation, journaling, exercise to kind of help us cope in those moments. But we don't have the alcohol to just check out for the night. So it's one way or another, we've got to get used to working through the difficult things. But in doing that, we become more equipped to work through the difficult things, other than the avoidance that I think alcohol,
Yes.
the opportunity it offers us, right? You think about stuff happens and we go to the bar, we go for a party, or at the funerals everybody's drinking and da da da, da all that stuff, right? And it's like, because then we don't, when do we get the chance to process what the heck is going on? I mean, sometimes we do, sometimes we might not for years to come. Any closing thoughts, Blake, about anything here?
Yeah, I think the big thing I wanted to just remind people is that it's so possible to do it. And if you have any i- indication that you have a problem, I think it's time, and whatever age you are right now, and I think it's worth giving it a shot, because I specifically remember saying, like, I would never be sober. Like, I might have a drink once in a while, but I would never be sober. And here I am today, and to me, it's like the only way to go. And so
Yeah.
it's completely possible. And, like, to your point, Brad, like, life is going to happen regardless. Things are going to go wrong. You are going to have death. You are going to have tragedy. You are going to have things are going to break. Problems are going to arise. And no matter what, you're going to have to deal with it. And alcohol is just going to make that worse. It's just going to magnify all those problems that you think are problems, when actually it's just part of life, and it's okay. And alcohol is just going to magnify it, and it's going to make it that much worse. And it only takes that one time for you to overdo it, that could have consequences. And to me, it's just not worth it. So I think, in closing, like, if you're wanting to quit and you're wanting to be sober, try to find something to fill that void. Luckily for me, it's health, it's fitness. So it was kind of counterintuitive for me to keep drinking, because I was literally poisoning myself. So that was a big motivator for me. But if you have other things that you want to do, like, share that time, fill that space. Don't just sit in a dark room and white knuckle it, because, I mean, that's not going to get you anywhere. And, motivation is only going to get you so far. To me, like, this podcast has been wonderful. I mean, I know I haven't spoken anything. I know I said I haven't been to any AA meetings, but I think the podcast alone for me has been very helpful. And it's something that's been able to keep me on track and keep me accountable. And, because it is my support system. Yeah. In closing, I just want people to understand that it's possible, and it's like, it's such a better way to live this life. I wouldn't change it for anything, man. And, like,
Yeah.
I'm very happy to be here with you. I'm very happy to share my story, and it's possible. That's all I have to really say. So
yeah, I love that, man. Great. So happy we could connect, and we could probably go in this other area for a bit, but maybe we'll just leave everybody with this. If there is somebody in that spot, about, we tell you all the time, all the guests tell you, I mean, this, like, you can do this, I mean, I don't think there's anything necessarily overly unique that us as people who are on this side of it, as opposed to people who might still be mixed up in it. Like, I don't see myself having any sort of,
superpower or something.
Yeah. I mean, other than sobriety itself, but I don't think there's anything unique to me where I was like, oh, I could get it. But then, say John over here, John is lacking in this ability, so he can't get it. I don't see it that way. I think what people have to understand is, like, you're in a spot right now where you feel it's impossible. Blake's been there. I was there as well. Mm-hmm. Like, just have a little bit of blind faith. Just say, okay, these two guys right here, like, they didn't believe, they thought it was impossible, and they could never enjoy life without alcohol, without substances. And here they are, and they're telling us that they are. And Blake is not a paid actor, and I'm not either. So this is the truth. I mean, this is the reality of it, is that we never thought we could live a life without it either. And we are, and we're, like, actually living good lives that are meaningful. And not to say you weren't before, Blake, but I know for me, I wasn't, I wasn't at all. My life was not very meaningful. So
it's just like, you were just pretending, it's like you're just buying yourself time. And that's where it was. It was just, you were buying yourself time, and it was, it really, it's hard to know who your true self is when you're always chasing that dragon and always trying to catch that high, and always thinking about when's the next time I'm going to drink. And I just think, like, like, having a family. Do you really want your, for me, and I know I'm kind of backtracing real quick, but, like, my parents were wonderful people. They are wonderful people. Like, I love them to death. But, like, they never really talked to me about that growing up. Like, we grew up in a household of, like, they drank and, like, they had parties, and, like, I don't want that for my kids. And I think that's something to think about. Like, if you're wanting to start a family now, or if, something like that, like, think to yourself, like, especially with so much more information out there on mental health and health in general, like the negatives of alcohol, we should be teaching our children that, and we shouldn't have it in the house to begin with. So if that's one of your motivators out there too, I mean, that's a great motivator too, is to be that voice for the next generation. Let's try to clean it up a little bit. Like, let's not make a generational problem of alcohol. Let's stop the alcoholism here. And you can do that by making that conscious decision to say, I'm not going to have alcohol in my family, in my house. And if my child grows up one day and they decide that they want to have a drink, well, that's going to be on them. But at least I'm going to give them the tools and the knowledge prior to them doing that.
Yeah. No, I love that perspective, man. Well, thanks again for hanging out today.
Thanks, Brad. It's been great. And it's so cool to see you on the webcam and to hear your voice, man. It's this has been a really, really cool experience. And I'm so glad that I've been able to connect with you. And I just when I see a new episode come up, I'm so excited because it's they're just so good. And I just keep doing what you're doing. And you're doing a great thing, man. I appreciate it. I know, like you said, you're a pretty humble guy. You're not doing changing the world, but you are in a way. You've helped a lot of people. So thank you so much for taking the time to do all this. And I know you enjoy it. So I appreciate you. So
thanks, Blake. It means the world, brother. Well, there it is, everyone. Another incredible episode here on the podcast. Huge shout out to Blake. Coming up fast to 1 year, jumping on the podcast and sharing his story. Another incredible episode. One thing to take away and maybe think about, sort of had me thinking about it too, is that, man, even a couple of days before people quit sometimes, or a week before, they had no idea that was going to be their last drink for now. I don't have a crystal ball to say it's going to be forever, how the journeys are going to unfold, but that's sort of the reality too. And I know I talked about that in a previous episode about how things can change just like that. Literally, you can be putting in so much effort and trying so many different things, and then wake up one day, decide to go that day without drinking, and everything snowballs. So stick with it. Thank you as always for listening. Drop a 5-star on Apple and Spotify, and I'll see you on the next one.